So to have these opportunities to build communities of like-minded people that they have something to identify with is quite powerful, you know. So I find that the community piece is really big. I'm trying to forget where that question originated from. And
CrossFit community.
CrossFit, that's right. So with CrossFit,
We'll always bring it back to CrossFit, don't worry.
Yeah. So with CrossFit, you know, it's that community. People come, and whether they're lawyers or they work at the grocery store, or, you know, they're just starting out their fitness journey, or if they're an elite athlete, they have that common bond of this is our sport and this is our box. And they're really like, it's like family oriented. So that was probably the number one thing that hooked me from the beginning, was seeing the correlation between recovery and CrossFit and saying, okay, I can really get behind this, because I know how powerful communities can be in people's lives. Because when you have, it's isolation is the root cause of all of our negative experiences as human beings, full stop. When we feel isolated, not enough, you know, outcasts, we don't have people to identify with. It's like that one kid who's quiet and a little different, and they don't get picked to play tag or go play any sports, you know, and they're bullied, like they have a horrible upbringing, right? But when you're with your group and your tribe and your people, anything is possible when you feel supported and loved and a part of. So that's, I have a lot of respect for CrossFit, even though the CEO is a bit of a douche. Well, he stepped down. That guy.
I mean, he was just a front man anyway. Like, you know, that whole whatever. Yeah, we could go into that, but yeah, it's definitely taken a turn. But you know, I have a CrossFit gym as part of my program, so I'm obviously a huge supporter. But it's that.
Amazing. I can tell your arms are pretty jacked. So I was like,
not like you, but
they are. I see.
Yeah, but that's why we put it in the program, is to give recovering addicts a community that when they go back to their homes, they already have a healthy, like-minded tribe. And as we know, as addicts, we're all very competitive, so it translates super good, like right into the sobriety portion of competition, and it makes you feel good when you're in there. And you know, I was just using 2 weeks ago, and now I'm doing a push-up, like, oh, okay, you know, it starts to make you feel good, look good, you make healthy choices. You don't just eat a bunch of bad food and smoke cigarettes and say, well, at least I'm sober now. It's like it's a lifestyle of health, which I think is key, and you obviously have this cornered, to long-term sobriety and longevity, is just to feel good, especially for women. You feel good, you look good, you feel good. There's this nice little, like, you know, nice thing that happens with ourselves if we can get ourselves to that place.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. So,
yeah. So, really and that was, I think, you know, like we just talked about, a hard thing about the pandemic with having all the gyms deemed not essential. However, you know, alcohol and weed shops and fast food is essential. And that was a real tough thing to sort of navigate. And that's where we kind of, I think, had to rely on our personal power to keep doing the right things and try to support others in doing that as well.
Yeah, 100%. You know, that was probably my biggest gripe. I mean, when I first got this last time around, I'll say, you know, this last time around, I had, you know, again, I just moved to Australia, so I was terrified to really go out. I didn't drive for like the first 6 months because it's the wrong side of the road, wrong side of the car.
So weird.
And even though they speak English out there, it was not English, you know, like I do not have the gift of cultural integration. So when I'm like, what, huh? And I hated it. I absolutely hated it. So what I did instead was I stayed in the house and I watched YouTube videos for 8 hours a day while my husband was at work. And I mean, I went down the conspiracy rabbit hole so hard, you know, and what finally pulled me out of that was launching Camp Confidence, because that became my obsession, you know, and I imposed my will on it. Like I'd legit stand out on the corner and like try and inform people of fluoride. You know, I'm like, dude, is there fluoride in your toothpaste? And it calcifies your pineal gland and and people are just like, what are you talking about? And you know, now looking at what's happened over the last several years, it was really difficult for me to quiet that part of my brain of you know, on the one hand, it's great because it's caused me to want to question everything and everybody. You know, I have a super open mind, but now it's to the point where I don't let it control me, because I almost became an agoraphobe. I was so paranoid that I was like, they're listening to me. You know, I'd put my phone in the microwave, you know, if I was sharing stuff with people. I mean, like it quickly spiraled out of control. And, you know, but that walking through that has now today allowed me to be in a position of, I don't know, maybe the earth is flat. Who knows? I don't know. You guys still kind of chuckle at that group of people, you know, I'm like, okay. But at the same time, I'm like, hell, I don't know. I don't know anything. Right. And that, I think, is a really good position to be in, because, you know, if you don't know anything, then it's like every day is a new discovery, and you keep yourself really humble, you know? So
I love that. I mean, I've gone through similar things where people are like, did you see what they said? I said, I don't believe them. I don't believe anybody. So I don't care what they said. Like, I don't have time to worry about what they're saying or what war we're in or what's happening. It's like, okay. You know, do I even believe any of it? Probably not. But then I'm like, wait, is that the addict in me that's like, you know, questions, and we just don't get in line. We don't do what we're told. We're like kind of rebellious, you know? Maybe that's been an asset.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying when we started the call. You know, there's pros and cons to everything. Like it's great on one hand because, you know, it keeps us open-minded, and like, you know, but then also it's like, all right, well, we question everything too. Like, yeah, like you said, is this me giving the middle finger to authority? Right. So, yeah, it's been a super interesting couple of years, and, you know, coming out the other end of it, because it was shocking to be like, oh, what? Now all of a sudden we're not going to talk about it because there's something else to talk about in Russia, you know? And like I said, I was just telling my husband this. I'm like, there's a lot of accounts I need to unfollow because I'm finding myself starting to feel almost paranoid again, you know, like all this talk about electric cars. And now I just saw an article yesterday in the BBC about microchips, you know, and I'm like, oh dear, you know, it's really easy for me to like start going down old paths. And
oh, I know, but it's so easy to do because you see it. You're like, gas prices like this, but now they're pushing electric. Like, what's the agenda behind that? I'm the same way. Like, I start connecting things and right or wrong. I'm in the exact same place where I'm just questioning everything. I'm like, okay, just go to work, save lives. Go to work, save lives. Go to work, save lives.
That's exactly right. And you're like, oh my gosh, is this me playing God, or, you know, is it just like, okay, well, it'll be what it'll be and I have no control over it. You know, is this part of human evolution? So it's challenging for sure, you know, especially to stay clean and sober during these times, right? Because there is a lot of uncertainty. So yeah, I like your mantra, go to work and save lives. I'm probably going to pick that up now. Go to work and save lives. Go to work and save lives.
Yeah, that's what we got to do. Wait, just to backtrack real quick, because it's so funny you said this, because this is I have a very hard time with accents. Like you said, even when I went to England, okay, everyone's like, well, they speak English. I'm like, yeah, but the dialect, even just county to country to country, it's so hard for me to navigate, and I get lost. What did you call that again? Because it sounded so proper. I really want to start using that.
It's the gift of cultural integration. So yeah, there is a test, if you will, called the natural gift assessment, and evidently there are 20 gifts that we can be born with, and there's 3 different levels. There's primary, secondary, and complementary. And I did this test, and you answer, there's like 100 multiple questions, and it turned out I had like the gift of evangelism, which obviously is if you believe in something, every Tom, Dick, and Harry is going to know about it. The gift of encouragement, which means when people first meet you, they're inclined to tell you their life story. They feel like they can build rapport quite easily. And then those were my 2. Oh, and then the gift of the gift of giving, I think, was another one, which is a primary gift, when it's like you see a problem in the world, you can't sleep at night until it's fixed. And then I had like the gift of beautification as a secondary, which means, you know, having the ability with interior design and that kind of a thing. But everything else didn't show up whatsoever. And one of which I noticed was the gift of cultural integration. So there's also a gift called the gift of poverty. And it's really rare that it's a primary gift. Somebody in my class had it as a primary gift, but it made me realize, like there's my brother in my life, one of my best friends, Brian. They don't see any benefit or they put no merit into having material things. So when we view them, often the self-talk is like, oh my God, what's this guy? Doesn't have any self-esteem. Like, look at what you're wearing, or you've been wearing the same thing for 5 years, like get some style. Whereas to us, it might look disheveled and, not put together. But at the end of the day, what that actually is a gift. So someone like Mother Teresa would have had the gift of poverty as a primary gift, where they just absolutely have no merit, no value in materialistic things. And that's actually a gift, right? So it really changed my perspective on a lot of things. And then, of course, understanding, so if somebody has the gift of cultural integration as a primary gift, then they ought to become a tour guide or learn another language and travel the world. Not the case with me.
Yeah. So if I have to do a podcast with somebody with an accent, I'm like, I need a translator. Help me out. Yeah. It's so bad. I really have to concentrate, really concentrate.
Yeah, 100%. My husband and I, the first 6 months of our marriage was insane. He'd say words like, oh, I'm fed up. And to me, as an American, fed up means pissed off. Like, I am angry, pissed off, way over it. And to him, that meant simply, I'm a bit bored. It's a bit redundant. I'm doing the same thing. I'm just a bit bored, a bit flat. Yeah. But, to me, I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? You're fed up. Right. So, all these little things. Or in Australia, I'd say, oh, thanks. And their response would be like, that's okay. And to me, I'm like, that's okay. That's what you got to say. Yeah. Like, screw you, jerk. But to them, that's okay is the same as saying, yeah, sure, no problem. So there was a huge point that I had to work through. And the dialects and, it's a real thing.
Yeah. How long did you live over there?
So I still live over there. My dogs are there. My car is there. So I go back and forth a couple times a year. And but even though I'd say, Las Vegas is my primary place of residency. Yeah. But from there, I lived in Thailand, I lived in Singapore, as well as Australia. And it was quite an experience. It wasn't until I moved out of the West and was living in Southeast Asia that you really start to see how people live their lives outside of, what we deem as important over here. Like, I remember the taxi cab drivers would all get together and especially like on lunch breaks or whatever their breaks would be, and they would have these little huts around the roads and stuff, and they'd all just kind of like congregate there and play dice or play cards, smoke their cigarettes, laugh, and just be happy. Or you see kids in the street kicking around a Coke can, laughing, and I'm like, oh, what a miserable existence. Like, where are your Tonka toys? Like, oh, let me go buy you some Legos. And it's like, they don't need that. They can turn anything into a toy and have a great time. It's just a state of mind. Right. So it really helped me reevaluate what gratitude and being grateful meant. So it was a great experience, and I'm super grateful for it, except being an alcoholic. Right? Whenever I'd move somewhere, I'd be like, oh, I can't wait to get to Singapore. I want to flush my toilet paper, and people use blinkers. And then I get to Singapore and I'm like, hate this concrete jungle. I can't wait to go back to Thailand. And then like you leave Singapore and you get back to Australia. You're like, okay, I wish I could go back to Singapore where da. So it's that constant state of wanting to be somewhere else, So it's like, even though we get clean and sober, we still carry around all those character defects, really, not always, but again, that's the whole point of recovery. It's like an ongoing process. Just because you put down the drugs and the alcohol doesn't mean you really change at your core, because it's like, okay, well, what am I running from? Why do I want to keep doing geographicals? Why do I constantly need, change and new stimulus, and what the hell is that all about, right? So, but the great thing is by being clean and sober, we get to actually become aware of that stuff, because without awareness of a problem, there is no problem to solve. So many of us go through life without even stopping and acknowledging why we keep doing the same shit. Like, why do we keep attracting that narcissistic ex? It's like, oh, poor me. And it's like, no, not poor you. You're the one that created this situation in the first place. So take a look at it and get real. So again, it's a super interesting life. And
Well, I often think, and I know, I mean, just like when we have people go through the program and like their families here, and we have so many families, like, do you got a family program? Because everything that they're learning by being a drug addict and alcoholic is what I see like shortcomings in my own life, that I'm failing in these different areas. So I think a lot of us, it's the benefit of being able to get sober. Then we put us on a road to start like self-discovery and personal development. And because it is a lifelong journey, it's not like we did it, now we're better, now go do normal life. It's like, no, we got to keep doing it day after day, week after week, year after year. And then you can just like peel those layers of the onion back. Like what I'm able to see within myself now, I couldn't have seen very early on in recovery. There's just no way, because I was dealing with trauma then. Like you gotta like work through all the big stuff where you can like then start to see the stuff that's like lying underneath before you can even see some of that stuff.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I do love the like layers of an onion, because it's just how it works, but there's always more work to be done. So I love that, both of us are on sort of a personal development, physical, mental, spiritual journey, because that's what it is. It's a journey. It's not a destination.
That's right.
Yeah. And so what does your routine look like on a daily basis? How is that transformed into where you are today?
It's a good question. I mean, I've been attempting to incorporate meditation into my life for like 12 years. I mean, I did it for like a week, maybe 2 weeks. In January of this year, I started listening to this Dr. Wayne Dyer meditation on manifestation. And
that's so funny. That's literally the book I'm reading right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There are no coincidences.
Nope.
But
sorry, go ahead.
I have not made it stick, and I think that's probably one of my biggest shortcomings. It's like, I know quieting the mind, but what I do instead is I get up and I get on my goddamn phone, and I know that is causing. So those first couple hours when you wake up, or even in the first 20 minutes when your brain, you're still not, fully awake, you're still in that like in-between state. And that's where we're in our creative space. And when we get on our phone, we go in from creation to responding or reacting. And responding is always preferred to reacting, but we're still changing our neural pathways and so forth. So, and the other thing too that's funny is I've gotten into subconscious psychology, and I do a modality called Psych-K, which is something similar to like NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, or hypnotherapy, or EFT with a tapping, to access our subconscious. And even though I have this modality and use it as much as I really should, I mean, I might use it like once a week, or, when I see somebody else, I can do a session with them. And it's funny because it's like, we know, but it's not until you get into a ton of pain that you actually make a difference a lot of the times. So it's like when we get to that sick and tired of being sick and tired phase that we actually say, okay, let me start doing this, so outside of that, I'd say, my routine is really just working out. That has always been the number one consistent thing in my life. And, I still, I have my sober sisters, and we're all in a text message, and every morning my sponsor sends a thought, if you will, of like a daily meditation or mantra or whatever, something to think about. And I do that. And then I maintain a couple of meetings a week, if that, and I know the more that I get involved in recovery, the easier my life becomes. And so even right now, while stuff is like quite challenging with, what's going to happen next and finances, I excuse me, am still not upping my recovery as much as I ought to. So it's funny. But again, at the end of the day, like, there's no wrong way to stay sober as long as you stay sober.